everyone, and welcome to the annual episode of Stuff on the Jams and Tea channel. This isn't really in the lineage of a series, it's just that we like to do a video or videos at the end of the year as a kind of wrap-up where we either count things down, we're going to go head-to-head with music releases. If that isn't already out, expect that to be out because I'm not sure what order I'm going to upload these in, but this is just one part of the duology of our 2025 retrospective, where right now we are going to talk about our favorite things of 2025. And we have no limits on this. There's no limits of media types or whatever. Like, this can be anything from an experience to a product to whatever the fuck we want, like we did at the end of last year. I really enjoyed that format. It allowed us a freedom we're not always afforded if we restrict the format too tightly. Since we cover so much, like the breadth of so many different types of media, I only feel it kind of necessary that we sort of get an excuse to do whatever the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
And 2025 has been a year where I have experienced a lot of new things and a lot of things that I don't think I would have otherwise experienced because of this YouTube channel.
You're a good kid. And that leads me into a good segue into my honorable mentions for my favorite things of the year list, which is just stuff that we've already talked about on the channel that I want to make sure gets an extra shout here. Those being The Crow graphic novel, which I read for the show and I love
Let's
very much.
go.
And that stuck with me very
Awesome.
much. The full discography of Knocked Loose should also get a big shout.
I'm just racking up W's already. Fuck yeah.
Also, Trust, the Hal Hartley film that we talked about with Riley, my favorite of the three, an immediate favorite film for me. And to keep it in the film domain for a bit, They Look Like People should also get a shout as one of my favorite movies that I watched this year for the show. And then my movie of the year, my number one movie of 2025, which we already talked about on the show, it's Sinners. It's still up there, folks. That movie has only grown on me throughout the whole
The
rest of
one
this
that
year.
started it all.
I've watched it so many times.
I've only seen it the once, but I highly look forward to coming back to it. Like, that's one of those movies where you watch it and it's so within the lineage of like John Carpenter, which like that's the exact kind of movie that's built for me to rewatch it 50 times. Like that'll be
Anytime
a
I have
Halloween
somebody,
staple.
anytime I have somebody over at the house and it comes up in conversation, I'm just like, well, do you want to watch it? Do you want to watch it?
And it's perfect for that. So completely agree. That's good set of honorable mentions there. I may mention one or two of those things in the coming entries and might have some stuff that Jen recommended me as well. So expect that. But
Wow.
the honorable mentions, first of all, my favorite thing of last year on our 2024 video was Stephen Hyden's book about Bruce Springsteen that came out that year, as well as Nebraska, just as an album. I had a really tough year in 2024 personally, and the music of Bruce Springsteen was my lighthouse in the darkness throughout the entirety of that. And I grew to love that music in ways I didn't really ever think possible. And I would now consider Bruce Springsteen my favorite solo artist of all time. And I wouldn't, frankly, my connection now runs so deep, I just don't think that's ever going to be usurped. And frankly, I had such high hopes for the Bruce Springsteen biopic this year that I did not see because everybody said it was mid as fuck. So it's good that instead of that, I get to include on my honorable mentions list, we finally got Electric Nebraska. It's real, you guys. It's real, and we can listen to it. The long rumored Electric Nebraska, which is the kind of more studio polished, more kind of like less folk, less stripped back, less suicide inclined than the actual record is. This is a version of the album that has been sort of rumored to exist for forever, that people have mythologized heavily, and we never really thought we were going to get a hold of it. And this year we got a remaster of Nebraska that included all of Electric Nebraska, so getting to explore that was awesome. And the other thing in my honorable mentions is zooming movies with my friends. This is something that I have been doing since 2020 just because it's been easy and fun, is that every once in a while, we'll all get together and we'll Zoom a movie and have a great time. And I did a lot of that this year with many, many people and had an absolutely wonderful time. Though I will say, my favorite viewing experience this year, save for one thing I'm going to mention later, was absolutely watching War of the Worlds stoned out of my mind with Rhiannon in this very room. That
Oh,
was
what
the
a
most
picture. What a
I have
picture.
I have not laughed at comedies as hard as I have laughed at War of the Worlds. An absolutely fuck awful piece of shit that I would watch again right now because it was so goddamn funny. If you need a good hate watch, if you watch shit to just marvel at how bad it is with your friends and, partake in substances, cannot recommend that enough. It was very funny unraveling the really strange conspiratorial web of Zoom call movies that War of the Worlds falls into the lineage of, along with like Unfriended and a bunch of other movies like it that are all produced by Timur Bakmanvatov, the guy who directed Wanted. Wild shit. Yeah,
Wait, he produces all those
he
movies?
he produced like every Zoom call movie ever. It's weird as fuck,
Did he
man.
produce Host, that one that actually came out during the pandemic, that was shot
He
during the
might have. I
pandemic?
know that there were several different movies where we were like, "Oh my God, he did all of these. This is a fucking industry now.
Well, because I'm
How
thinking he
odd."
did. I know he produced the Unfriended movies, but there's also Searching and its semi-sequel Missing.
That I think Missing actually might be. Let's see. He produced War of the Worlds, Unfriended, Dark Web, Searching, and a movie called Profile. And oh my God, there's so much slop on here. Holy fuck. Oh wow, this is awful. Okay, that is a rabbit hole we do not need to get into. Holy shit. Let's start off our list proper. Jen, you started it off, so take it away with your number 10.
Times out of 10, she's a 10, and I wanna hit a 10 out of 10. Her boyfriend is a fuck.
I don't really have these in any ranking order. I just have an alphabetical list.
Go right
But
ahead.
let me start with my favorite individual movie that I watched this year in any context whatsoever, which was Charles Burnett's Killer of Sheep, which I just put
Ooh,
on one
okay.
afternoon on the Criterion channel, and it completely blew me away. And I've known about Killer of Sheep and Burnett's filmography for a long time. Actually sitting down and watching Killer of Sheep, it is an amazing experience. What I learned in my early semesters of college doing like basic film classes about all the different big artistic movements from around the world, your we did Breathless and we did La Notte for Italian neorealism and all that. And I felt like I really got to pull all of that out of me one last time for Killer of Sheep because this is a primo work of neorealism filtered through a very unique American lens that lends itself to a very different approach in terms of how Burnett directs conversations and the kinds of things that as an independent filmmaker who's doing things very scrappily, he ends up doing with the camera because you're for several scenes in the movie, you're just kind of following this group of school children as they come home from school. And Killer of Sheep is very much just about some days in the lives of this small, very impoverished black community. And you're seeing these people go to work, and yeah, one of them works as a butcher and he's the titular killer of sheep. But you're also seeing like their children, their children's friends, their neighbors, the local vagrants. You're seeing just the way that all these lives intersect in one particular moment, and it's a very beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing. It's a very unique thing that film as a medium is capable of doing.
Well, I am happy you put this on my radar. This is a criminally underseen movie from what it looks like that's only 80 minutes long, by the way. So, everybody, if you want to check out some good neo-realist shit, which you always should because it's some powerful fucking cinema, go check that out. That is going
Please.
right onto my watch list personally. So, this is probably the most niche Jake thing as my number 10, but I really took an effort to try to get back more into gaming these last 2 years because I've been slacking since the start of the decade just because music kind of dominated the fields of, artistic mediums that I have been consuming. So I've really been at it this year trying to balance everything. But one thing I kind of discovered in the advent of emulation, which is one of my favorite things to participate in because I have lots of different devices and I like the idea of preserving old games and being able to play old games on like newer hardware and stuff like that. I talked about it a little bit last year. One thing I got really into this year is that I got a hold of a bunch of little Anbernic Android devices that my Steam Deck is cool and it emulates console shit awesomely, but I need something tiny. I need something small because I like handheld gaming. So I got a hold of this bad boy right here, which is the Anbernic RG Slide. This is both my MP3 player that I listen to most music on and my device I use for gaming, and it's basically a big PSP Go, if you remember what those are like. And it is super awesome. And the thing I played on here the most this year was Pokemon ROM hacks. See, I am a big Pokemon guy, have been since I was a kid, played every single game as it's come out, and it's kind of no secret that for a little while now, Game Freak's design ethos has been, shall we say, stagnant, following suit with their parent company, Nintendo. They are a company that is very stuck in their ways, and thus a lot of recent Pokemon titles have not been doing it for people. As much as I loved Scarlet and Violet and think that they were a really awesome advancement of the formula, those games were buggy and poorly optimized out the ass. And if they aren't buggy and poorly optimized, then they straight up felt fucking empty like Pokemon Sword and Shield did. And the remake of Diamond and Pearl was really disappointing, and frankly, I didn't even finish Pokemon ZA. Like that game, there was nothing even wrong with it. I was just like, there's just nothing here that's interesting to me anymore. So I turned to the world of Pokemon ROM hacks because it is a completely fan-driven community that fans of this franchise are using an excuse to basically make their own Pokemon titles and advancements in the formula. And this shit, the stuff that people are able to do for free, these are, they don't, nobody charges shit for this. I played one of the best games I played for the first time this year was a ROM hack of Pokemon Emerald that turned the game into a roguelike, a Hades-style roguelike. And I sunk dozens of hours into that fucking thing. The way that the formula is updated onto that and the way that the gameplay loop is so tight, it's fucking amazing. There was one that came out recently called Pokemon Lazarus, which is a completely new region that's been designed from the ground up, and all of them have like unique graphical styles and new tile sets, and some of them have like, there's so many great fundamental ways to shake up the formula and make these games more interesting in ways that corporations are not really interested in doing. So it's kind of like Sonic Mania, except Sega actually had the sense to actually hire fans and people who worked on fan games and, didn't send them cease and desist letters like Nintendo does, you fucking dinosaurs. So you get to appreciate the hard work of lots of really talented people, get to play some old shit with a new coat of paint and in ways that you never thought you were going to play it. And I had an absolute blast. I highly recommend two of like the two best ones that I played other than the roguelike one, which is Pokemon Emerald Rogue EX. I would also recommend Pokemon Elite Redux, which is basically a game that adds 4 huge game-changing passives to every Pokemon in like basically in kind of a Hades style upgrade system that completely changed the way you play the game, and they're completely randomized, and there's basically thousands of ways they alter the gameplay. And that was nuts. Like that was one of the most insane experiences I had with a game all year. And I recommend Pokemon Hyper Emerald, which is basically, hey, what if Pokemon Emerald had a ton of great quality of life updates, a completely open world, a new graphical style, and every fucking legendary under the goddamn sun, including things up to Generation 9. So people are doing awesome shit, man. And if you're a Pokemon fan like I am, there is no shortage of great shit, and it is $0, and you don't have to spend $60 on a game that feels like it came from the PS fucking 2. Yes, I'm still bitter about it. Game Freak, get your shit together.
Yeah, I haven't played a Pokemon since Scarlet. I dodged Arceus and barely got through Shield because my God, that game sucks.
Shield is like an empty fucking video game, man. Like that
Um,
that that game doesn't feel finished.
I've known about the ROM hack scene for quite a while and seen some good videos by people like AlphaRad on some
Great
exemplary
channel.
stuff in the scene, but I absolutely need to give one of these a try just because it's been a while since I've gotten really into a game even remotely resembling Pokemon, just because the
Well,
the
if you need advice.
onboarding process of games like that always frustrate me.
And the best part is quality of life is such a priority for all of these that the onboarding is like you just go. It's some of it's just real clean break, no fucking like tutorials, all that fucking bullshit. It's just like, you know what you're doing, go fucking have fun.
I just want to catch Pikachu, man.
Let me catch fucking Pikachu and also give it an ability that fucking breaks the entire game in half like it does in Pokemon Elite. Like that shit was dope as fuck. But yeah, emulate shit, piracy is preservation, yada yada yada.
9 times out of 10, I'll be thinking of you.
My next pick. I have two. They're taking up two of my picks, but I have two things on here that were movies that were on my Hooptober list for this year that ended up making their way into my all-time canon best movies of all time list immediately after watching them. And you watched one of them. I
Ooh.
know you had already seen the one I'm about to mention, and you coincidentally made your way to the other one, so we'll have something to talk about here. But let's start with Perfect Blue. Satoshi Kon's the only Kon things that I still need to watch are I still need to see Tokyo Godfathers and I still need to see
Right,
Paranoia Agent.
right.
But I had put off Perfect Blue for a long, long time because I knew that this was like life-altering stuff that I was about to subject myself to. But my fiance Renee, when we were picking out our movies for this year, they were mentioning, "Oh yeah, I heard about this little movie called Perfect Blue," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I know what Perfect Blue is. It's supposed to be really good." Da, 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 da. And then it was the time. I knew that that was the moment. And so we put it on our list and we got to it eventually. And man, it's just really a pinnacle of animation as verisimilitude, where the kind of the knowledge that you're watching this kind of immediately fabricated reality makes a story like Perfect Blue work so effectively
Amen.
because you're not able to look for the tells, because all the animation is so well constructed. We make jokes all the time in old animation about how, the door that's fully drawn is the one that's going to open in the shot, but Perfect Blue is so densely constructed from a production design standpoint that eventually you just forget that you're watching something that isn't real at all. And I don't mean real in the sense of, people had to draw it. And that's the thing that you forget about when you get deep enough into this narrative and you get as affected as you are by this kind of psychological drama and the torment of this character. And it really is peak editing, peak sound design, fake songs that actually make sense for a movie like this and don't have to be ironic and playing into these movies' themes, looking at you smile too. And and just an amazing experience of a movie that has immediately gone into like I'm going to be thinking about this movie forever territory for me, which I knew it would. I know I'm a mark for Satoshi Kon because I love Millennium Actress, but
That's
this is shot above that.
that's the funny thing is that I first watched Perfect Blue, God, maybe 2018, 2019, long time ago. And that was a little bit before I got fully into Satoshi Kon, who, if I was ranking my favorite filmmakers of all time, Park Chan-wook, top of the list, right underneath it, Satoshi Kon. And I rewatched Perfect Blue for the first time in years, this year as well. And it was revelatory. I finally got to see it in HD as well, which really, really helped. But Rhiannon and I watched it, And it was like every single bringing back that moment from JJBA where it's just like sometimes editing just gives you a fucking boner. And my God, Perfect Blue, if you asked me, hey, what is the best example of editing in the medium of film? That's my first answer. Every edit, every shot change, every jump cut in this movie, it made my stomach curdle. There are glances of characters in this movie that gave me goosebumps, that just sent shivers down my spine in a way I did not remember this movie being that effective. I was so locked into this viewing experience. Perfect Blue is not even technically like a true blue horror movie, and I would tell you it's the most afraid I think a movie has ever made me. It is sensational. It is in my top 10 of all time, right behind Millennium Actress, literally right next to each other.
Oof.
And I really, really, really like my appreciation for that multiplied so much. And it is one of the most unsettling psychological thrillers ever made. And, Satoshi Kon, he was just the GOAT.
My other Hooptober pick is definitely a competitor for this, but nothing that I dealt with this year in terms of art kept me in a prolonged state of unsettled tension in the way that this does, where I spent several scenes of the second act of Perfect Blue just in complete disarray.
The fucking, I think one of the most genius movie scenes of all time that kind of loops back into your sort of point about simulacrum in movies like this in an animation is the simulated sexual assault scene, which,
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, it's just like, haha, I'm, holding aloft this scene where a woman is violently sexually assaulted, but it's the way that it presents it to you because it is acted. It is within the context of the main character filming a scene where this happens in a movie, and you are watching a scene where it happens in a movie that is animated, which that's like 4 degrees of separation away from reality. And it doesn't matter because that scene is 4 minutes long and you want to rip your own fucking skin off for every single second of it. You're just like, oh fuck, please, please stop. Please stop. And that's why it's genius. It's that it's just like it's one of those few movies that can portray an issue of that magnitude with the amount of power and uncomfortable vibes as it deserves. Like you're supposed to watch a scene like that and you're supposed to want to throw up. And mission fucking accomplished. My next is, funnily enough, going right back in the movies. This is just film in 2025, the new films that I managed to get to see this year, which this is a little bit lower on my list than it was last year, just because admittedly, I did not get around to as many films as I would have liked. But generally speaking, I loved a handful of movies very intensely this year, but the amount of movies that applied to much less than the last couple of years, if I'm being perfectly honest. And that still is partially my fault. I'm sure there are a couple other things that I still need to see. The top of the list, by the way, is in fact No Other Choice, Park Chan-wook's new movie, which I will be watching within this week. And when I update my inevitable reviewing all the rest of the movies that I watched for the first time this year video, I will probably talk about it there just because I'm never not going to have anything to say about my literal GOAT. But in terms of new movies this year, we still got a lot of really, really solid shit, and I don't want my lack of overall investment in 2025's roster to suggest any differently. First of all, if I can go with the movies that I really, really, really loved with all of my heart, that's probably the current top 6 that I have. First of which being Zach Cregger's Weapons, fantastic horror movie that swerve after swerve, curveball after curveball. It's a movie that definitely isn't going to work for everyone, but I was very happy to see just how successful this movie ended up being because of how fucking weird it is. Overall, I think I may prefer Barbarian by a tiny itty bitty bit, but I love the scope of Weapons. I love how ambitious Weapons is. I love how strange it is. It actually inspired me a lot to take some particular creative directions with Simone endeavors that I am indulging in now in terms of my writing. But it's a really great movie that I rewatched semi recently and liked even more the second time around. Superman, we have a members only video where we discuss how much we loved talking about James Gunn's Superman. And yeah, this is the most I've liked a comic book movie since the last time James Gunn made a superhero film, which isn't, that long ago. But if you separate James Gunn movies from superhero films, which low-key I kind of think that you should. This is basically, as a film, I think it may be his most impressive blockbuster fare thus far, just because there's so much interesting stuff done with the camera and the blocking here. So much of the writing in this, I think, is genuinely very stellar. I think the proxy argument scene between Clark and Lois is the single best written live action Superman scene that we've ever had. I'm like, that's the scene I'm going to point out when I say, what's Superman to you? That is Superman to me. And it was lovely. It was fun. And it also introduced me to an Iggy Pop song that I've been listening to fucking constantly since. Next is I finally got around. I hate myself for missing this in theaters because I'm a fucking moron, but I finally got around to One Battle After Another by Paul Thomas Anderson. Yet another fucking masterpiece from the guy. Like, he's also, like, if I'm talking about my absolute top of the line favorite filmmakers, he's in my top 5 too. We have several First Watch episodes talking about basically his entire filmography on here. Go and check those out because they break them down in a lot of more detail, including this movie. But yeah, if this movie cleans up at the Oscars, which frankly it's kind of looking like it will, deserves everything that it's given. Basically, this is Paul Thomas Anderson making as close to a crowd pleaser as he's ever going to make, and he makes no concessions with who he is as a director. This is him still adapting Thomas Pynchon, but into a movie that is so close to being an actual action movie, you're like, damn, how is this guy still unearthing new facets in himself? It's the best Leo has been since Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I tend to prefer his comedic roles in general, and this is one of the strongest, probably top 3 alongside The Departed for me. But the stars of this movie, in terms of like what the best things about it are, the camera work and Chase Infinity. Chase Infinity should be winning a Best Supporting Actress Oscar this year, and I'll hear nothing to dispute that whatsoever. Same thing with Benicio del Toro, frankly. Great movie. 3, Sinners. We talked about Sinners. First episode of our show is about Sinners. I co-sign everything Jen had to say. Sinners is fucking wonderful, fucking gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. Top 2, on the other hand, these are the ones that are staying with me. Like, these are the ones that I think are going to be really, really high in terms of all-timers for me. 2 is the newest movie from one of my favorite people in Hollywood who doesn't get to make movies nearly as often as she should, that being Lynn Ramsey. Die My Love with Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson. Had no expectations for this other than, a new Lynn Ramsey movie. I love her films. I went into this, and what a ride. All I can say to sell what this movie is that it's kind of like if the Darren Aronofsky movie Mother was made by somebody who wasn't a punk-ass bitch. Sorry, I hate that movie, and I bring it up whenever I can. And down to the J-Law similarity, who is on fire on this movie. If people actually bothered to watch it, she should be a front runner for Best Actress. Pattinson's great too, but this is a tense, nerve-shredding thriller about the psychological deterioration inherent with motherhood and postpartum depression. This is a ride of a movie. I promise you, you will not see anything like it this year, and the directions that it goes in, deeply unpredictable. Also a fantastic turn from Sissy Spacek, who is as good as she is in Carrie, frankly. She's great here. And Robert Pattinson is he is so good at just playing some guy. Like, here, he is some guy. Good Time. He is some guy, and nobody is better at it than he is. Great fucking movie. But The only 5 stars I have given this year to a movie, very predictably for me, I'm sure, Wake Up Dead Man. Newest film from Rian Johnson, the final film of the Knives Out trilogy. I am a huge Rian Johnson mark. I think that The Last Jedi was a film that broke everyone's culture war ass brain for literal years. And frankly, I never want to hear anyone talk about The Last Jedi in any context. I don't want to hear people praise it. I don't want to hear people say it sucks. I don't want to hear anything about it at all because I'm at capacity with it. And ever since then, Ryan has had this stigma attached to him that he's like some sort of prankster, this like trickster god of a screenwriter who wants to fool you more than he wants to make a good movie, which is just about the furthest thing from the actual reality of that dude's movies that I could possibly fathom. I loved getting to see the original Knives Out in theaters. That is hands down like the best crowd I have seen a movie with. Like it was hooting, hollering, everybody was thrilled. Like the epitome of what you want of a unique blockbuster. And I did get to see Glass Onion in theaters as well. Not as good as the first movie, but I do honestly kind of love that movie. I love its weird, windy ass structure. I think Janelle Monáe is great, and I just kind of love the anti-mystery of that movie. But frankly, Wake Up Dead Man, best of the trilogy. And
does this one have an actual mystery in it?
Yes, it does. And it does, but in a way you don't necessarily see coming. It is basically, I think it's the closest these 3 movies really have to a genuine, like, Agatha Christie style mystery. But what I didn't expect for this movie to be was a genuinely really thoughtful and very stirring meditation on the idea of religion. And as somebody who has a very loaded background of religious trauma, who comes from the Bible Belt, who was raised Southern Baptist, who was converted Catholic, and is now very agnostic, this movie is kind of like Martin Scorsese's Silence in how it was kind of designed to pick and prod at my brain specifically in terms of what these themes mean and what they relate to. In fact, I kind of think that some takes I have read on this film, I feel like don't fully engage with what this movie is about in the way that the film actually goes about it. But it is a very contemporary movie, and that this is a movie that is very, like, there's lots of modern stuff in it, and I know people have reacted strangely to the previous 2 movies where some of that stuff is a little, it takes you out of it. I think this is the most elegantly applied version of this because it's really just a movie about Americans and their predisposition to latch onto demagogues because they are spiritually lost people. And this movie is not, it doesn't even really feature Benoit Blanc that much, if I'm honest. This is a movie about Josh O'Connor's character. And Josh O'Connor is the best new working actor. He is a fucking movie star. I think I like him better than Chalamet. I like him better than Butler. I think he's got the most promising career ahead of him. And I think that he is like having a legitimate golden run of performance
Very excited
work.
to check him out in the new Kelly Reichardt joint.
That was another one that I need to get to that I've heard he's just spellbinding in, but here he's carrying this movie on his shoulders alongside the absolute best work from Rian Johnson's longtime cinematographer partner, Steve Yedlin. This is the best looking Rian Johnson movie. It is also, Yedlin is going the fuck off. Like, he is doing Michael Ballhaus, Scorsese, The Color of Money shit. There's so many dolly zooms, so many whip pans. This thing is active. This thing is blocked to perfection. And frankly, the final hour of this, I didn't expect a Knives Out movie, movies that are, you know, my comfort food that I just walk away from being like, oh man, I appreciate the craft and everything, but what a fun movie that kind of plays to my sensibilities. Now, Wake Up Dead Man like moved me. Like I left that theater feeling different, and I had a fucking terrible day the day I saw this. I almost didn't see it in theaters, but Rhiannon took me for my birthday, and I very much appreciate her ushering me along into this experience because we both left it kind of floored. This was a movie that was engineered to be my kind of shit, but I'm legitimately astounded with how much I loved it and how much it impacted me and how thoughtful I ended up finding it. And that Silence comparison, by the way, not a mistake. This and Silence basically have the exact same ending shot. You will know what I mean when you see it. And and
God. I'm
this
picturing Silence in my head right now and just trying to imagine what this could possibly be.
you're
Oh,
gonna see it, and then you're gonna look at my Letterboxd review with the quote I open with, and you're gonna be like, you fucking son of a bitch. You little fucking you shithead." That said, I was very happy with this in a way that I did not expect to be. I think that this is Ryan's second best film. I Brick will probably always be my favorite of his because that was such a foundational high school Jake movie that I still come back to, and I'm like, this is the most essence of me movie ever made. And this to me is solid in the ways that all of Ryan's movies are, but it's thoughtful and I needed it. It's a movie that legitimately like I walked away from and I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm looking at things in my life a little differently than I was before, which is the best thing that a movie can do. It's stellar. I know that not everybody's getting the chance to check this out in theaters, but once this hits Netflix, watch this on the nicest fucking television you possibly can because it deserves it. Fuck Netflix for sequestering these fucking movies out of theaters. Absolutely ridiculous. I was very, very lucky. And yeah, it's a perfect film. And I can't think of like I was just sort of like waiting. I was just like, all right, Ryan, call the shot, hit the home run. This man ends this movie with my favorite album closer of all time. Go back, watch our episode on Tom Waits' Mule Variations. I say at the end of it that the 1-2 sequencing at the end of that album is my favorite sequencing choice in all of music because Come On Up to the House is my favorite album closer of all time. And that's the song that ends this movie. And I was like, oh, you bastard.
you're
You
such a
son
mark.
of a bit. I am. I mean, this is literally like you ended it with a Tom Waits song. This is such Jake bait. Like fucking shit, man. Yeah, nothing but amazing things to say. The introduction of Benoit Blanc in this movie, that scene, that is the best scene Ryan's ever directed. Wonderful, wonderful movie.
Whew. And to keep in the realm of movies,
I ain't got nothing but love, babe. 8 days a week.
the biggest surprise of my Hooptober list this year, another movie I gave a perfect score to that immediately shot up into my favorites of all time list that you watched, coincidentally, was the original adaptation of The Stepford Wives.
Oh shit, this fucking rocks. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so
yes, yes.
I've known about The Stepford Wives for years, and Rosemary's Baby is one of my favorite movies. I've always been really fascinated by the novels of Ira Levin. Those two
Ira
books
Levin,
in
yeah.
specific are really, really interesting works where you've got a guy in a time where it was really not expected of anybody to be able to do that. Use the horror and speculative fiction genre as a way to explore like domesticity from a feminine perspective and the trials and turbulations within of this kind of new expectation because it genuinely was new at the time, this new reality that we were living in of the white picket fence fantasy or the apartment and the 2.5 kids in New York fantasy because your husband is a theater actor or whatever. But the Stepford Wives is ironically much more of the cultural mainstay just because the idea of like Stepfordization, like everybody knows what that means. Everybody gets the premise of the book now.
They know that more than they know the actual movie, I would argue.
Yeah, like they get the idea of like being replaced, some kind of thing, but nobody really knows what the actual movie is about and what the actual
No.
book is about. And so it's a really interesting story, and it's so unsettling from the beginning, just the way that we're brought into the story, because the movie starts with us immediately leaving the city and we're not really sure why. And so you're
Hmm.
put immediately in the shoes of the protagonist, who is being swept away from this very nice career that she has as a photographer in the city to this new community called Stepford that's much more like rural slash suburbanite, where, you know, the father is just insistent that they go. And so they go. And it's not a conversation. Or if it is, it's one that's, what's her name? Julia? Is that the character's name?
Might be.
I know it's Eberhart is the last name because that's such a great last name, but I think it is Julia Eberhart. Joanna Eberhart, excuse me. That Joanna is moving out of Manhattan to Connecticut to this community called Stepford, and she just finds that all the women in this town completely bore and alienate her. And all the men also completely bore and alienate them. And so you're dealing with this kind of outsider figure who is just trying to integrate into this community that she can't really understand because she doesn't understand the way that all of these people seem to lack ambition and
Hmm.
like lack intimacy and lack passion for anything in particular. And there's just so much dialogue in this movie that really
Yes.
stuck with me. So many scenes of Joanna talking to somebody else about this feeling that she's having that really resonated with me and honestly spoke to how I've been feeling like disconnected from people just in the past 5 years to the general factors, right? COVID and social media and changes in my day-to-day life and all that. But just the idea that like nobody seems like they want to do anything. What's going on? Like, why have we all just decided to stop and be in perpetuity doing this thing, like raising kids and taking care of the house? We can live for a little bit more than that, right?
Hmm.
And the movie digs in so much at this feeling that Joanna's mindset is a scarce one and is one that is not welcome here. And what that ultimately suggests for, you know, the premise of the Stepford Wives is ultimately very silly if you zoom out. But when you zoom in and you see all the particulars of how it's executed, this is just one of the most unsettling movies I've seen in years.
I mean, it's proto Get Out. Let's be honest about it. Like it's unsettling in all of the same ways that something like that is. And it's like, yeah, if you go in and spoil what's going on in Get Out, it does sound silly, but you experience it through the main character's eyes and the journey of the movie. And it's like,
Wow. That is such a perfect comp. Movies
it
are
really
basically
is.
structurally exactly the same.
More or less, and they do deal with similar ideas, but the one thing that I where I'm like I kind of prefer the Stepford Wives, even though I do love Get Out. Don't mistake my comparison for damning with faint praise. The Stepford Wives has one of my favorite examples of a female friendship in horror and cinema in general of Joanna and Bobby. They're incredibly believable dynamic as, you know, the main character who's a little bit more normal, who's a little bit more ambitious and kind of separate from a lot of the characters in the community, and Bobby, who is this really bubbly, really overly enthusiastic person who you kind of come to realize, oh, she's not like quirky. It's just that she's like repressed who she was because nobody here is anything like her at all. And she's finally found someone she can talk to. So words are just falling out of her mouth. So, like, so much of the movie is built on the back of their relationship, and the ultimate subversion towards the end there with her is it's legitimately so tragic and sad. It's so effective as a journey. You really feel wrapped up in how this movie progresses from A to B, even if you know where you're headed. Rosemary's Baby is one of those movies where it takes all of those little things that annoy Jake about mystery thrillers that just makes me kind of disconnect from it. This is exactly what I wanted Rosemary's Baby to be when I originally watched it, where I'm like, these ideas presented to me in this way makes more sense to my brain. And man, that is also a good looking movie. If you can track down the version of this movie that people have on Internet Archive of the HD transfer, please find it. The only version on streaming is in like 480p and it doesn't look great and the lighting's all overexposed. The HD transfer on that, gorgeous. You have to watch it like that. It's very, very beautiful. For some reason, this incredibly relevant staple of pop culture does not have a Blu-ray release, which I find utterly confounding.
Well, because that was, I'm looking at like the production and distribution company. This was a Columbia Pictures thing. And I don't know, where is it? I would like one. I would like to
And
own this film.
also, hats off to main actress Catherine Ross, who is the therapist in Donnie Darko. I recognized her like tone of voice where I was like, I know you from somewhere. And she's fucking terrific, man. She's like one of my favorite horror movie leading ladies now.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant movie. Again, the biggest surprise in my Hooptober, though it's my silver medal to Perfect Blue, but both 10 out of 10 movies for me.
Yeah, one of the best. I would say that movie and Little Shop of Horrors were the best movies I watched for like our October horror marathon that Rhea and I have
Yeah.
every year. Number 8, I always make it a point to include something that is super cringe and unflattering on these lists because I like to be vulnerable. What can I say? But I also want to be honest, so there's no point in disguising it. This is kind of a random inclusion, I guess, but I couldn't deny how much of a staple it's been amongst Rhiannon and I, just in moments where we got to rest. Like she's working on her master's degree, I'm working a hell of a lot, and I'm trying to do YouTube channel. So in our off moments, we try to find nice ways to relax when we're not like, watching movies or going and doing something. And one of those things is, in fact, YouTube. And the YouTube channel that we watch the most is Smosh. If you told me in
I've been at your
2008,
apartment multiple times this year, and Smosh is just always on in your bedroom.
in 2008, if you told me in the 5th grade, yeah, in like more than 15 years, you're gonna still be watching this because I watched Smosh back when it was fucking like, to be blunt, when it was bad. when the comedy was pure YouTube clickbait, like bad sketch comedy. It had a charm to it because it was distinctly that sort of first wave of early YouTube where it was distinctly anti-corporate. Like it just felt like some guys doing something, and that had its own kind of appeal. But it's like, obviously I don't watch that shit now. Nowadays, Smosh is looking a hell of a lot different than it used to because they've hired an array of great UCB comedians and LA people who are talented and funny, who get together and make content, and you know what? It's really fucking enjoyable. There are people like good old Mr. Shane Top, Mr. iCarly Shane Top, and the Goldbergs Shane Top, which I was really, really strange to have been familiar with him before I revisited Smosh, because it's a channel that Rhiannon has been watching since the pandemic because they kind of had a resurgence as the channel evolved away. Like the narrative of the channel is essentially that in the late 2010s, a company called Defy Media basically bought them and made all the content really bad. Like it was just like it was
Oh,
again,
yeah,
it was
'cause
really
Defy.
corporate and
What else was
weird.
Defy behind?
Probably a bunch of other stuff that, and
I
they
know
like
I've
went
heard that
under
name before as
hardcore.
like a Defy Media.
That's sort of like everybody who broke away from Defy, like once they rebought the company, they sort of used it as an excuse to do all these really interesting sort of comedic ideas where with like sketch comedy and stuff. And now they have a variety of things. And one of our favorite weekly rituals is every Saturday they release a new episode of them just chilling and talking about Reddit stories. And you know what? Rhiannon and I are tired. We enjoy our weekends off, and that's usually how we begin the day on days like that, just because we love hearing unhinged stories of people being absolutely fucking crazy. It is not exactly the highest brow form of media and participation, but frankly, in times as bleak as this, I am thankful for anything that can consistently make me laugh, and the people at Smosh, they make me fucking laugh. If you like literally just click on any one of the random of thousands of compilations and fan cams and shit that have been put together by Smosh's resurged fan base, you will find something that tickles your funny bone. I think that a lot of them are super funny, super like silly content stuff, nothing substantive, nothing that's going to fucking, change the game or the paradigm or whatever. Like, I like to come on here and talk about people who are really like academic and thoughtful, like FD Signifier, for instance. That said, like, he was on my list last year because of his like Kendrick and Drake content. Like, the drip feed of that kept me sane during election season. But this year it was really kind of Smosh that sort of kept me from, being all consumed by the vortex of misery that is the modern state of affairs of the world. So if you just need a good laugh, tune in. It's some good stuff. I highly recommend it if you just need to burn some hours and watch some funny people do some funny stuff.
To pivot,
I hit my peak at 7.
I had a little bit of a creative renaissance this year. I started doing things that I hadn't done in a very long time. Things that originally like inspired a lot of my passions as a writer of fiction, which I don't really put as much of an emphasis on, but I do have a little bit of a bone for it in me that I'm trying to work out still to this day. But the most successful for leisure creative project that I managed to complete all throughout this year is because I got my hands on this book right here. This
Cool.
is
Interesting.
Monster of the Week. This is a tabletop role-playing game that I started playing with my friends, and I made a little story for all of us to play in. We've got like half a dozen of us in there as player characters now, so it's been a really expansive story, but this is based around a lot of urban fantasy stuff, like obviously the Monster of the Week
Ooh.
concept is there. And so you've got a game book here that takes a lot of influences from things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, The X-Files.
Our shit.
Yeah, our bag, our flavor of week to week television genre fare. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about the story that I started putting together for this as a way to talk about what this game is kind of capable of, just by telling you about the characters. We have one that is played by Renee that runs a flea circus, but they're actual magical bugs, who plays a warlock type character who has a supernatural benefactor whose identity has not been revealed yet, so I'm not going to say what it is. But then we also there's a character played by a friend of mine who is called the Spellslinger, who's basically an apprentice wizard. And so your responsibility is like you're just kind of independent, but you're still beholden to, there's a thing that you can do called luck points, which is basically take any bad roll, turn it into a maximum success. But as you run out, more bad things are going to happen to you. And so it's kind of my responsibility as the game master to ensure that that happens. But if you're messing around with the rules of magic, you might get called on by the Wizard Council. And so I had to come up with a whole like, okay, what does the Wizard Council look like in this context? And there's all kinds of great little nuggets like that in this book, where it's like the classes, or the playbooks as they're referred to in this, are all types of characters first and skill sets second, where the type of personality that a character like this would be informs kind of the gameplay mechanics. And we've had experiences trying to play games like this before, where the mechanics kind of trying to figure out the mechanics kind of overrides our enjoyment of the story we're trying to
You got to
tell.
find a balance.
Whereas this is just such an intuitive system that I've had so much fun running, especially with friends of mine who aren't as inclined to this type of gameplay experience, where our friend who is very new to TTRPGs came up with this character who is a character type called the Flake, which is basically a conspiracy theorist. And so she made hers like an ex-military person who runs a pet store, but eventually leveled up to give herself the ability that she can always tell when someone is lying. And so is now the most powerful character in the party.
I was going to say,
she
in a
walks around with
D&D
a
setting,
gun.
that is your most valuable person.
Yeah, just because she walks around with a gun and knows when someone is lying to her. So
I know when you're lying to me.
the first time that she ever like whipped out that ability on us was actually in the moment of player-to-player interaction, where one of the players was trying to lie to that character, and she just immediately looks this person in the eyes and goes, okay, but Maggie knows you're lying because Maggie knows everyone is lying. And the whole table, it was like that classic Vine moment of like
I was gonna say, that's a pop-off moment. Yeah, for sure.
So I had a wonderful time with that this year, and we're taking a hiatus for the holidays, but I'm so excited to play more of this game this year.
There is a specific art to like DMing and things like that that is vastly underappreciated. Doing that kind of thing with friends, if you have people in your life who are writer inclined, it's a really fun experience if you can get together with the right people and sort of find an organic way to evolve your story into something that you never would have predicted. Like there is a unique art to that that I think is kind of being captured by people like, with the success of shows like Critical Role and stuff like that. Like you have a lot of people who are kind of capitalizing on the ability for emergent storytelling in
Yeah.
tabletop RPGs. And I love that as a concept. I just think that's a really neat idea.
But still, nothing beats, especially with Critical Role being so too big to fail, that they're clearly making a lot of safe narrative decisions to not piss people off. Whereas, they in earlier years that they might have actually done the thing that they said they were gonna do.
You get the
Whereas
pop-off
nothing
moment.
nothing beats doing it yourself, right? So if you're
Exactly.
interested in learning a TTRPG this year, go do it. Go
Mhm.
buy a book off of Drive Through RPG and just read it and see if you like it.
If pop culture has done D&D and things like it any disservice, it's painting it in the light where like everyone who participates in it is you'd think that D&D is about dice rolls and rules that are in a giant book that you have to keep going back to. When the reason everybody plays D&D is because it makes a cool story. That's the reason people play it. They don't play it because there are a bunch of fucking numbers. They want to tell cool stories with cool characters, is what they want to do. And speaking of cool characters and cool stories and fantasy, I suppose, I think that this is probably, other than my number one, this was like the single thing I experienced that I feel like impacted me the most. One thing I have completely almost lost touch with is the landscape of modern anime. That's one of those things where if you don't keep up with it, you fall so far behind so quickly. Jujutsu Kaisen is over. And I'm like, I should probably watch that. Like, it's pretty big. I should really take the opportunity to see what it's all about because it looks pretty nifty. And I would really like to see what the Shibuya incident is all about because everybody says it's pretty fucking awesome. And I've fallen out of touch with it. And it's because keeping up with it is such a task, depending on the streaming service, depending on, what we're talking about. It's hard to keep up with. So when I saw a lot of people talking about something in particular, which had an interesting sounding premise, I took the opportunity to be like, hey, Ree, I think we should watch this. This looks like it'll be our kind of thing. And so I watched the entirety of a little show called Frieren Beyond Journey's End. This anime is so fucking good. Not only is it incredibly unique, because the entire conceit of the story is basically that the main quest, the main adventure of a fantasy story is over. Every giant, big, important event that has happened in Freeren's universe has already happened, and it happened a long time ago. It starts kind of en media res of this group of adventurers who, the group, the D&D party essentially are celebrating at a tavern, and they are these heroes that are renowned through the country they live in, and statues are built of them, and they're celebrated as these figures. And it smash cuts to 100 years later, and the only person who still looks the same, obviously, is the elf member of the party, Frieren, the titular role. And everybody else in that party is a human. And so if they're not dead already, they are almost dead. Like one of the characters, like one of the first things that happens in this story is a character dies. And this show starts off being this really thoughtful, meditative show that I've never seen a fantasy show like pump the brakes immediately and do nothing but benefit from it. It's all about how this character sees the world around them and how she rationalizes change. Like Frieren, firmly in the autistic savant character canon as somebody who's not fully with it on the social cues. She's a bit flat and monotone, but the thing is that her English VA somehow makes this work into one of my favorite voice acting performances I've heard in the last couple of years. Like everybody in the English voice cast is fucking great. I would really highly recommend that you watch the English dub if you take the journey to watch this. And a lot of it's this really slow thing that's about things like aging, mortality, dying, and you're seeing Frieren go on this basically a side quest of retracing her steps through the adventure that she already went on and how it recontextualizes. And the reason this got like the reason this like got into me, like the reason I latched onto this, it has the same structure as Stephen King's It, where it bounces back and forth in time and shows you the repercussions of certain actions and how they inform like the past and the present.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, like, I don't think it's exactly a hot take to say that it's a little inelegant in the novel. I love the novel, but it is inelegant. It's unwieldy. It's cocaine. This, on the other hand, does it so well. And the cast of characters are like, I'm so invested with every single one of these people. And I was a little afraid because this starts out doing a kind of very episodic structure. Like each episode is very firmly its own thing when it starts out. And we have been big proponents of things that do the episodic structure well. And that's the best part of this show thus far. And then there was a moment where they started getting into more arc-based storytelling. And the first moment that happened, I was like, is this show going to retain the things about it that I like? Because it's, you know, it's slower and it feels like we're ramping up. So are we going to be able to preserve all of that? And the answer was yes, because when this goes into its first arc of episodes, oh my God, it's riveting. The drama, the direction, the action, the Sakuga moments. Oh my God. This has both the meditative, quiet moments that you would want from something new. And if you were to watch something that's going to make you cheer and fucking fist pump, and also moments where you're going to go, oh, Jesus Christ. This has it. The little demon arc in the middle of this is the best shit I've watched since the Chimera Ant arc of Hunter x Hunter. It's awesome. And they do a sort of tournament kind of training arc thing after that. Not as good as the first half of the show, but still one of the better iterations of this arc subtype. The only reason this isn't like number 2 on my list, because this checks every box. It's unique. It's gorgeous, well made, great characters. It ticks every box. Rhiannon turned to me midway through the show and was just like, I think this is my Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And I was like, you know, I see it. I totally see it. The only reason it's not higher is because season 2 is going to start next year, and it needs to keep being as good as it is. If it is as good as it is, this is an all-timer. So I'm very, very much looking forward to watching how this continues. And hell, with the show that we have, maybe we'll talk about it in the future. I don't know. But yes, in huge endorsement to go watch Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Lovely show. Beautiful show. Great characters. Great everything. So good. And the soundtrack and the OPs are fucking heat. Stone cold heat. It's awesome.
6 different ways inside my heart.
A communal experience that we shared together that made my list is Kill Bill.
Yeah, the Whole Bloody Affair.
We drove down to Lexington to see the Whole Bloody Affair because it was not playing here in Louisville, and it was Jake's birthday. So we made our way in and we spent a whole afternoon watching Quentin Tarantino's 4th film. Now, I'm a big fan of Kill Bill Volume 1, much less so Volume 2. Seeing it fully realized as a singular vision, as a 4-hour epic of genre pastiche and daddy issues exorcism, uh,
Mm-hmm.
was just a really unique and really singular experience that made me completely rethink everything I knew about Kill Bill. Everything that I thought I felt about it was just kind of twisted a little bit seeing it in a theater after a few years of having seen it and having had my own thoughts on it and seeing it in the way that it was originally meant to be. It was just a really unique moment of seeing an artist patch their work in a way. You know, we joke sometimes about director's cuts and the George Lucas of it all, but I really do think it's a good thing in the world that the whole bloody affair exists.
Oh, 100%. Obviously not at the top of the list of the Weinstein's sins, but certainly still on the list nonetheless is still these arbitrary fucking, yeah, man, split it into two parts. And like, I kind of understand it from like a marketing standpoint, but like you watch this movie and you're completely right. This is so much better digested as one big thing. I can't watch it as anything else. It's kind of the opposite of The Hateful Eight, which is actually both of these are my favorite Tarantinos. The longer theatrical cut of Hateful Eight, I don't really like it as much as the theatrical cut. I think that it works better as a longer but still slightly trimmed down, more sculpted experience. This, on the other hand, this is a pop art masterpiece. This needs to be maximal. You need as much shit crammed into this as humanly fucking possible. And that's what it is, and that's what it does. And also, the extended Oren Ishii sequence is fucking sick as fuck.
It's so
Sick.
great. I forgot we were gonna get that, and so when it kept
Mhm.
going, I was like, "Oh
I've
yeah."
never seen this.
And
And it was one of those movies that really birthed my love of cinema. Like, it was the first Tarantino I sought out in high school, and I was like, picture me in high school not having seen that many movies, and then I watch Kill Bill. That's like a fucking confetti blast explosion of shit that you're just not ready for, and you're like, yeah, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
seeing it as a whole remedied some of my bad feelings about Kill Bill Volume 2 as well, because
Justice
watching
will be
that
done for Volume 2. History will remember it fondly.
just watching that Volume 2 in isolation, like several months after seeing Volume 1, trying to get through chapter 6 and 7 for the first time was just like, okay, go back. Go back. Now go back. She's still in the box! Go back!
I'm the man in the box.
I was glad to have a lot of those feelings remedied just by genuinely being a better experience of pacing, but also of like maturing a little bit and recognizing what the second half of that movie is doing a bit more than I did the first time around. It's definitely a combination of both of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I walked away finally being like, yeah, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, like, those are hard. Like, you know, I hit those with like 9 out of 10s, and I'm like, nah, this is perfect to me. Like, this is exactly what I look for. It's exactly the kind of movie. Like, Tarantino is at his best to me when he's at his most indulgent. So naturally, my two favorites, three favorites really, are his most indulgent movies, because when you do this kind of not necessarily populist, but this kind of like the stylistic things that Quentin Tarantino is obsessed with are never as effective as they could be if they're not being employed with excess. Like you
Yeah.
need to do these things and you need to saturate them. You need to make them as vibrant and colorful as humanly possible. That's what Kill Bill is. It is an exercise of style as substance. It's literally it's what movies are made for. And I mean, getting to watch that with you guys, that is a highlight of the year for me for sure. Absolutely. Like the energy of the theater of just people kind of like communing, like it was mostly people our age too, and we were all
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah.
Movies.
The fucking movies, man.
Rest in
and
peace to
now,
movie theaters.
oh, R.I.P. Fuck. I'm moving to something that is not movies, at least it's not yet. There's always something every year that I get really into as like kind of in a proxy way. Like I'll discover something that's an unusual window into a world or a fictional universe or something that I get really invested in. Like in the last video, I talked about watching a 13-hour long video essay about fucking Bionicles, like that kind of nerdy autistic shit. And there are few things more nerdy, more autistic than Warhammer 40K. And
Let's go, man.
all of Warhammer 40K is my next entry because I have consumed a lot of different things regarding this fictional universe, which I knew nothing about before this year, like zero. It was one of those things that I always knew a bunch of people who were into it or a bunch of the kinds of people who were into it. And then I knew it was a tabletop game that was obscenely expensive. And I was just like, well, I'll never afford that anyway. And then I got into it because of who is basically the like if it's this list, if I had to itemize it, it's like Warhammer 40K slash Bricky. The YouTuber Bricky is somebody who I've been watching all year long because he redid his videos that he did during the pandemic explaining the entirety of the lore of this universe and its main factions of characters and like the timeline of events and what these characters are all about. And just like what, just basically giving a crash course guide is that he basically remade them, updated them with newer information that Games Workshop had kind of put out since. And these videos are so good. Like they are so well put together. Bricky himself is very, very funny. Like that's the reason why these videos work is that Warhammer 40K is a grim, dark science fiction universe. And it is the grim, dark science fiction universe. This universe sucks for everyone in it. Everything in Warhammer 40K is fucking miserable. So there has to be a kind of tonal balance of absurdity, or you have to have somebody who's not dry as fuck. And Bricky is very, very funny and essentially gave me a window with these videos that are super well, like they're really informative and stuff. And he kind of gives you a gateway into other stuff alongside his podcast that he has called Adeptus Ridiculous, which goes into really specific characters or factions or just people in general or events that happened, and he kind of explains them with his co-host in little hour-long episodes. And I got so into this that not only did I consume a ton of the Adeptus Ridiculous podcast, I also played Warhammer 40K Bolt Gun, the video game, which is a boomer shooter Doom clone kind of thing that is actually styled to look like Doom 1 and 2, like graphically. And that was really fun. Like, yeah, I really love those old school kind of shooters. So I played that right after I finished playing through Doom and Doom Eternal at the start of the year. And I had a blast. That was a really, really fun game, really nuts and bolts kind of stuff. And I'm also looking forward to potentially playing things like the Dark Mechanicus tactical RPG game that I want to give a shot to. Dark Tide is supposed to be fun, and Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 is also supposed to be super fun. But I now could probably teach a very competent 101 class on this universe. I went from somebody who knew not a damn thing about this other than I know there are orcs and space marines in this story somewhat to I can probably name 3/4 of the Primarchs off the top of my head. I have all of my preferred favorite like factions and characters and strong opinions, and I read a lot of books too. I read basically Warhammer 40K's lore is mostly informed by the books and authors that Games Workshop employs to write these specific things. And a lot of them are like basically where everyone starts is the human faction, the Space Marines, the ones that everybody knows. And the Horus Heresy is like the big thing that everybody uses to kind of get into Warhammer. So I started reading some of the books that are about the Primarchs and the Horus Heresy. I read the book about Sanguinius, I read the book about Angron, and I read the book about Konrad Curze. And I recommend all three of these books, primarily the Konrad Curze, the Night Hunter novel, because it is like a really fucked up episode of Hannibal. It's like, what if this guy who was this war hero, this like big figure in this universe was a fucking crazy person. Like, what if Batman was like a militant executioner who just fucking hated everybody and kills people in just the worst ways imaginable? Really fun. Like, I'm pretty sure the book starts off with him putting together a flesh sculpture of his father because he's insane and wants to talk to his father. And again, like Hannibal shit. Like that is like this really good
Wild.
character study of this awful place in this universe. Angron's book is this story that's essentially Gladiator, but like really tragic, really fucking heavy and sad. And the Sanguinius story is like this mystery about what's going on with this wing of the Space Marines and what exactly is secret about these specific characters. I can't think of a better way other than Bricky to just like, if you see anything interesting about Warhammer 40K, literally just like go on a wiki and start reading about it. Because somehow, like if you're lore brained like me, this will get its hooks in you so fucking quickly. If I had to pick favorite things in it, my favorite factions are I'm probably gonna be seen as a basic bitch. I love the Tau. I think the Tau Empire is awesome.
I don't even
Super
know
cool.
what that means.
Yeah, it's basically a conglomerate of space communists, and it's awesome. And they have Japanese mechs. It's super cool. And I like the Necrons too, but I also like the Adeptus Sororitas, which is the nuns with guns, who are all religious, insane zealots that just like their belief in their faith makes them superhuman, and it's so fucking sick and terrifying.
Renee is actually working on an army with the Sisters of Battle, or the
That's
Adeptus Sororicus, that's themed around the Sailor Scouts.
dude, oh my god, I should
They're
get
working on
really
painting
into
it
Warhammer
still,
like
but
this.
they're working on painting it still, but I might have them show it on the channel. just for funsies.
I do want to buy like a figure or two. There are like some cool things. I also really like the Harlequins, the crazy ass Eldar things that worship like a chaos god. It's not actually a chaos god, but like Warhammer people don't get angry at me for getting the technicals wrong. There's this universe is dense and there's a lot of shit in it. Lots of cool stories. I basically have like I used so many Audible credits this year buying all of the recommended Warhammer stories. Like I have a bunch of them that I want to get to that are like the most acclaimed ones. But yeah, it's a really dense, cool fictional universe that saw an insane explosion in popularity since the pandemic, and now a ton of people are getting into it, and there's so much to it. You will be able to find something you dig in this universe. There's also the YouTuber Wes Hammer. I've also watched a lot of his like single videos about specific topics and stuff. Go watch his video on the Tyranids, because boy howdy, that's some nightmare fuel. That's just the Warhammer in a nutshell. It's a lot of nightmare fuel. So I think a lot of me getting into it this year is like, well, there is definitively a universe that sucks more than this one.
It could be worse.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And these are the 5 fingers that I steal from you. And these are the 5 fingers that I steal from you.
My next one, my favorite game, my game of the year, Death Stranding 2, baby.
Ooh, I have not gotten to this yet.
I bought a PlayStation just to play this game because I've been waiting. I've been waiting on Death Stranding 2, and it really did not disappoint me. In a lot of ways, it's a very surprising game. We talked a lot in the episode that we did about Death Stranding, how kind of playing it is ultimately a process of automation and optimization, right? And Death Stranding 2 continues this spirit in some ways, namely through a lot of quality of life improvements, some of which I messed with, and some of which like I kind of liked the friction of some of those elements of the first game, and those are mostly gone now. Like I don't think there was ever a point in Death Stranding 2 where I felt unprepared for a combat scenario, just because you have access to so much stuff from the beginning. But it's a different kind of game with a different kind of tenor to it, because I mean, a won't spoil anything, but it does go in a little bit more of a typical hero villain revenge plot than the first game has, where Higgs is back mysteriously as the villain in this one, and he's coming back to kill Sam, and there's other things that are going on, and still other, like, connect the world that you have to do, and so that gameplay loop is still very much in tow. But the game has much more of an emotional headway in how it deals with its characters this time around. Like, Sam is in a lot of emotional pain throughout the game. And that's reflected in how he interacts with a lot of these new characters. The Charlie Rose bit where it's like, we have all these characters. I could say that about this game because, like, you got Tarman and his little cat, and you got Elle
The
Fanning.
band Churches.
You have Elle Fanning, the band Churches, Doll Man, the best little guy of the year in a year of games filled with little guys.
Vote for
Doll
Little
Man,
Guy of the Year is Dora from Hades 2.
Doll Man, your therapy buddy who rides on your belt loop.
Oh, he just wants to literally send you to therapy.
Yeah.
Literally.
The last 2 or 3 hours of Death Stranding 2 is the most bombastic crap I've seen all year, and I loved it so much. I was completely in the can for its Matrix Reloaded level expansion of the lore that happens toward, I'm telling you, like, you will think the game is about to be over, and then there's 10 more hours of the most insane stuff you've ever seen.
That's
in this
the
game.
Hideo Kojima of it all for you. That's the thing, is that the relationship Hideo Kojima has with sequels is so fascinating to me. You could do a 5-hour long podcast about Metal Gear Solid 1 and Metal Gear Solid 2 alone, and the way that those games contextually inform each other, and the way that they make each other better, and the way that they make each other contradictory. So I'm very curious to eventually get to this and see what kind of dialogue it even has with the first game.
It was that's a game that I don't have to use a lot of my cognitive power to get through. And I needed that after finishing grad school. So the game came out at a very good time for me.
Absolutely. And hey, that serves as a wonderful little segue, because my next entry on the list is gaming in 2025, which I didn't really get to a lot of modern, like, new releases. Of the new releases that I have finished, yeah, my game of the year right now is Hades 2. I really, really enjoyed that game. I do share, when we talked about Hades 2 with Riley, you mentioned some stuff about the ending of the game being kind of weird, and I got to it and discovered that there was kind of a hubbub about the ending to Hades 2 because it technically wasn't finished for a while and then was updated, and then it kind of split people down the middle again as to how they received it. And I'm of a couple minds about it. Like, there's some things I like about the ending of Hades and some things that I don't like, but the journey to get there was just as compelling to me as Hades 1 was. It didn't quite stumble or fall on its face. It just didn't stick the landing as confidently. Like, I still think on the whole, I prefer Hades 1. That's like a perfect video game to me. But, like, on a mechanical level, Hades 2 succeeds in every possible way. And oh my God, the character designs. Oh God. Oh geez. Um, uh, Artemis is so hot, man. Artemis is so sexy. It's crazy. And Nemesis, look, they knew what they were doing with those character designs, and I'm glad they did all of those things, all of those decisions.
There's a big woman who spends the whole game talking down to you, and I said, I know Jake is gonna like this one.
I, yeah. Yes, and it's just one of those games that come from a developer, and you're just like, I feel the joy that the people who made this game must have experienced making it. And that's something you don't always get, because video games are kind of the most inherently capitalist art form. They're so, yeah, like, they're about the demands of the consumer more than any other artistic medium, which makes it kind of sometimes. But I love feeling the personal touch. But In terms of just like highlights, I started the year with one of the best things that I've played all year and ever, really. Blasphemous. 1 and 2. I haven't finished 2, but I did finish 1, which is holy fuck, that game put me through the ringer. Absolutely gorgeous. The most beautiful Metroidvania I've ever played. It is like a deeply Catholic game in how it looks, in its presentation, its horror, its atmosphere, its design. It is exquisite. And I look forward to beating Blasphemous 2 because there is a lot of new stuff in it that I want to get to. I also played some like stuff that I had never played before. Like I finished Doom Eternal again. I played Borderlands 3. I played the Spyro the Dragon, the original, which I had never played before. And then there was a phase where I started to be like, I want to play lots of games that are just sort of on my list that I can kind of cross off, but stuff that's more like arcadey, stuff that I can beat in like a week or less even. So I got really into a bunch of arcade like shooters and stuff. So I had this like months long phase where I was just cleaning through bullet hells like a madman. I played through like the entire Metal Slug franchise. I was playing shit like Ikaruga and all of the spin-offs of that, and it was a blast. I discovered tons of obscure games that I had a wonderful time with, like Gunbird 2, which is a game where you play a little girl who looks like Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service on a little broom, and you're basically playing, it's basically Ikaruga, but with a little tiny witch girl, and it's so much fun. And I played through games like Devil May Cry 5 again, which is an old favorite of mine, one of the best ever. IMO, Death Stranding. Jen recommended that to me, and finally getting to that was wonderful. I had a phase where I did nothing but play fighting games because I have always been interested in them, but I've always been very bad at them. Only Smash. Like, that's the only game I've ever been able to be like, oh yeah, I could probably hold my own in that. But I played The King of Fighters 13, which is like the most gorgeous fighting game I've ever played. Great. I played the Guilty Gear games, which are awesome. Guilty Gear Double X is fucking sick. Samurai Showdown, the remake, is awesome. I played visual novels, including 2 visual novels that are very amusingly titled Milk Inside a Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk, and its sequel, Milk Outside a Bag of Milk Outside a Bag of Milk, which, despite their titles, were 2 of the most meaningful horror experiences I had all year. Frankly, don't play those, Jen. I kind of think we might talk about them in the coming year, perhaps. Maybe. I don't know. But the single best thing that I played all year that isn't Slay the Princess, which we also already talked about, is Chrono Trigger. I finally got around to playing and beating Chrono Trigger, which I had played in high school because I kind of went through that when I played like Final Fantasy 6 and 7, like going through the classics essentially, but I never finished Chrono Trigger. So I got the DS remake, booted it up on here, and started playing it, and oh, that's every good thing anyone's ever said about that game is true. It holds up so well. It's still so beautiful
get onto this.
to look at. The Akira Toriyama character designs, I think it's the best work Akira Toriyama ever did, frankly. And we made that video about him and Dragon Ball earlier this year. I've had a real kind of hole in my heart because of Akira Toriyama's passing. I know it was a little while ago now, but it's something that I have yet to really get over, honestly. But getting to experience this world, its story, and the way that this shit is just like I didn't expect the narrative and characters to actually be as colorful and fun and well realized as they ended up being. And God, the music in this game, the different places that you go, the way that, you know, your battle and strategy evolves as you keep unlocking new party members and stuff, it is simply one of the best RPGs I've ever played. New addition to my top 10 of all time. Humorously, Zach and I discovered after I beat Chrono Trigger that I think our favorite games of all time are in our top 10 is that we share 5 entries that are in both of our top 10, which, everybody in this channel is just somebody else in a different font. And that's all I can say about that. And the only thing other than that is that the one thing I wanted to get to that I didn't quite, but I need to mention is that something I'm in the process of beating right now. And I needed to mention for the sake of Morgan, for the sake of Riley, for the sake of everyone I know who's played it, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I am about a little over a third of the way through. I mean, shit, man. This is one of the best fucking things I've ever touched. The presentation alone, gorgeous. Voice acting, characters, story, intriguing, layered, thoughtful. Gameplay. This game manages to take turn-based RPGs and make them feel like you're playing Devil May Cry. The parry system in this game makes me lock in like I've never locked in before. It's the best feeling RPG combat I've played since Persona 5, where it just has a bounciness and a rhythm to it, and the UI is also kind of bouncy and rhythmic in the exact same way. And the exploration's wonderful, and I can't wait to get to the point where I've experienced the vast majority of it, just because even the opening hour of this game, where you barely do anything, I was like, wow, I feel like kind of choked up. Most games bore the shit out of me for the first hour because I'm like, come on, start. But you don't really know what's going on, and you get to a point and you're just like, wow, I guess I'm locked in. So I know that Riley and Morgan, I'm pretty sure it's both of their game of the years, and if not, it's damn close and it's getting a lot of great reception, just as good as everyone says it is. I look forward to finishing that. I am trying to blitz through it and House of Leaves simultaneously this month while trying to devote as much time to both as possible because I don't want to rush through either. I want to luxuriate in them because they are not experiences that you should rush. But man, oh man, is that game fucking good. I have no doubt that will end up usurping, if it sticks the landing with its story, which all indicators point to yes. I think it will be my game of the year when all is said and done.
Show me 4 chords, it should be enough.
My next one, the TV show for people that don't like TV that came out this year that I found myself loving very, 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 very much. The Pit.
Right. Yeah, I've heard lots of
The
good things
Pit
about
came out
this.
this year. Do you remember that? I had that moment when I was putting this list together of like,
Maybe
oh yeah,
this year didn't go by fast. Oh
The
my
Pit
God.
came out this year, and to be fair to myself, I didn't watch it for a couple of months after it finished airing, and I found my way to it because it was streaming, and I made my way through it. But The Pit is absolutely brilliant television. I love it very much. And if you don't know the concept, it's basically a in real time depiction of a day of work at a trauma center in Pittsburgh. That's what the show is about. And so you spend the whole season going through this whole day with this large cast of revolving door characters, all these big personalities, a ton of great actors in this. The girl from Goosebumps plays one of my favorite characters in this show. Issa Briones is her name. But you've got Noah Weil, who was a veteran from ER back in the day, who
Yeah.
co-created the show and plays the lead. And he is the resident attending. So he is like the one who is telling everybody above a certain like level of grunt work in the hospital what they need to be doing. And the show starts and he's coming into work and it's the anniversary of the death of a mentor figure of his who died during the pandemic. And so the show is kind of about that. It's kind of about spoilers. I'm not going to say what it is. There's an event that happens about 2/3 of the way through that completely throws the pacing of the show in a completely different direction. That if you don't know that it's coming, you're better off. So I'm not going to try to suggest at all what it is. But it really is about the minutia of the profession. You have so many characters who you're seeing go through the basic steps of medicine and the idea of care in many different ways. And you're seeing how those kinds of people get treated by the system in many, many ways, because there are a lot of scenes where Noah Weil will come up to another character and just be like, hey, why'd you do that? Or hey, thanks for doing that. Or hey, you shouldn't have done that. And here's why. So you get to learn a lot about the kind of politics that go on in a hospital floor. And there's a group of characters that are first year med students, and this is their first day of residency. So those are kind of the audience surrogates for how the existing character dynamics, but also the logistics of the show work. And it's very good, even though it uses its real-time concept to very good effect. It's also a very good episodic show where every episode has this one little character that's like, oh yeah, this is the episode with that person or that case or that story or that one thing that happens that changes how these characters interact with each other. So yes, even though you could technically watch this as like a 15-hour movie, and I did binge watch several of these episodes in little pockets as I was watching it to kind of get as much of that experience as I could, it's still a very good week to week, because it did air week to week. It's still a very good week to week Sunday night primetime HBO drama with a bunch of cool characters played by hot people. So it is great water cooler TV, even for the people in your life that may be a little bit like us who get a little bit of diminishing returns from long running television.
It sounds so like well optimized. There's so many things like going for it and how you described it that I wasn't really like
It
aware
is
of.
it is a fast show. Like the pacing of it is brilliantly executed, because even
Cool.
the moments that these characters have to breathe are perfectly paced for the audience as well, right? There's always a moment, because there's so many characters to follow. There's always a reason why you're
Right.
focusing on this particular character at this particular moment. And the show is great at executing that stuff.
Well, awesome. I definitely will move that up on my priority list because I remember people being like, "Yeah, this is legit shit. This
It
is some television."
It was a perfect
So,
mark for like all our friends, all our old friends on film Twitter who were just like, "Ah, I don't watch TV," but everybody got obsessed with The Pit. I saw you.
ha, got
Before I
him.
got off Twitter, I saw you.
My next entry is real easy. I kind of talked about this in an episode that we did, but this was going to see Lucy Dacus with my fiance Rhiannon.
Yes.
And
Oh
like
man.
we don't get to do that much live music, though Rhi has been kicking ass with K-pop concerts this year with her and her friends. But we got to go see Lucy Dacus in Louisville at this nice, cozy little theater venue. And not only was it just a nice concert of one of my favorite working singer-songwriters doing some incredible performances that I really liked. I liked that the show kind of bounced back and forth with her newer stuff and her older stuff. It was like surprisingly dynamic in terms of the level of energy, a lot of soft moments contrasted with a lot of kind of more forward moving pop centric kind of stuff. And yeah, I was really thrilled about that. And it was also like, some couples got married there. So some cute lesbian couples got to go on stage and get married because Lucy was marrying people. And it was just a real lovely bastion of queer joy, which was something that was, kind of in short supply this year, considering everything going on. Like, it's really easy to feel pessimistic and just downright fucking hopeless about the state of affairs of the world. So it was nice to just sort of go and be in communion with people who were, everybody there was a sense of comfort there that everybody just loved being there, and it felt like a little refuge in a corner of the world, even though it was just a little spot in Louisville. And it was refreshing, it was nice to experience, and it was nice to just sort of give yourself over to the concert experience in general. It was one of the better concerts I think that I've been to, and I really appreciated it. It was a great time, and of course I get to share it with the person I love the most. So it was all the better for it.
3 hours from sundown, Jeremy fly.
I'm gonna stay on the concert bag actually, because
I knew it was coming.
next thing on my list, I'm gonna talk about my favorite concert that I went to this year, even though I've had a lot of
Yeah, I'm
contenders.
curious. What is the favorite?
Oh, it's the Grand National Tour. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I
All they ever wanted was a black Grand National. Fuck being
I drove
rational.
up to Detroit to be a part of this gigantic cultural moment because I really do think the Grand National Tour is going to go down in history as like one of the great you had to be there moments of Kendrick
Oh
Lamar's
yeah.
career.
One of the
And
greatest victory laps of all time already.
yeah, and it just felt so great sharing that energy with everybody. And because I don't know, I get weird. I get like strangely anxious about concerts sometimes just because I'm like, I don't know what random asshole is going to show up and ruin this for us? You know what I
It's
mean?
possible.
There's always a risk like that guy that came up to us in the hallway after we got out of the movies the other day.
Yeah,
But
you're always like at risk of
anyway.
exposing yourself to somebody who's just like, I'm gonna make it my mission so that I can be a story in these people's lives. And it's like, I didn't pay for this.
And I also just like, yeah, concert etiquette is a thing I got weirdly thorny about in the post-pandemic years. But no, it just really felt nice to be, because we had pretty good seats for this. It just felt nice to be lost in this kind of moment. It was our vacation, right? It was the time
Mhm.
that we were gonna take to go see Kendrick Lamar, and it came at just the right time because of just having just finished school and being in the middle of a new job that was stressing me out a little bit. Just being able to get away from it all for a little while and be a part of something bigger that allowed my problems to feel a little bit smaller for a few hours and to just focus on like being engaged in this really particular unique way. It gave
Yeah.
me a lot of value and I had a really, really great time at the show. And I look back on it with a lot of fondness, not just because God, I had such a great time with the actual like songs and the dancing and the set list and all that. But also just it came at a really great time and it was a really great experience to share with the person that I love, similar to you at the Lucy Dacus concert. So big ups to the Grand National Tour. I really hope I get to see Kendrick again soon, but
I hope I
I
get to see him one day. I mean,
I
just in
will
general.
be forever happy that I managed to see him twice already just in the span of the past couple of years.
Hell yeah. And staying on the realm of music somewhat, minor tragedy happened at the start of this year is that my laptop here, I hit capacity with my hard drive. With taking over editing duties on the channel, I did not have any room left on my hard drive for the 400 gigabytes of music that I had on it anymore because video editing, if you didn't know, takes a fucking lot of memory. A lot of it. So I was like, all right, it's time. It's time to quit streaming. No more. It is just going to be me and, once again, the MP3 player. I put my entire music library and everything I listen to on this little doohickey device here and downloaded the best music client that people who frequently use Android devices use. And now I have my whole fucking collection on this tiny little thing. So much music, all of it. And something about kind of untethering myself from streaming and just doing this made me it felt strange. I don't know how to verbalize it, but it made me feel like owning my own stuff is something like kind of important to me as kind of somebody who cares about media preservation, like streaming and all that. It's great for convenience, but at the same time, I'm somebody who values the connection that I have with things, and if I want to share that connection with somebody, I have to worry about whether or not I'm even going to be able to access it, which is why I care about emulation, why I care about having MP3s and FLACs in general, like at all. And one of the things that sucked about having to use music on my phone is that I had Apple Music, and Apple Music only lets you put files in your library that are MP3 files. It does not allow FLACs. You can't put them in your music library. This, on the other hand, I can put whatever the fuck I want on here, and it'll still read and organize it, and thus I got to be able to download a ton of higher quality versions of albums that I love. And knowing me, I listen to a lot of records that have production styles or that just generally speaking have dense mixes. So the compression of MP3 files, it kind of does them a disservice. One of the things we talked about when 2021 rolled around and we had our album of the year, which was Panopticon's And Again Into the Light, that was an album that has a very suffocating compressed production style, mainly because that compression only just like it's basically it's not done super intentionally. It's done as a result of the limits of technology. But if you use FLAC and you hear it uncompressed, oh man, it's kind of like listening to a different album. And so I got to track down lots of my favorite records and hear them, frankly, how they were originally meant to be heard. And again, there's something satisfying just knowing it's right here and that I don't even need an internet connection to listen to any of it. I got a 1 terabyte SD card and I loaded everything we reviewed to on here. And frankly, it was awesome. So this is an entry that is shared of music in 2025 and this little doohickey. If you want to know more about music in 2025, watch our little head-to-head video whenever it comes out. If it's already out, go watch it again. I don't know, man. Fucking help us out. But seriously, this year was an incredible year for music. We kept saying that basically every time we recorded. We were just like, damn, this year, like we got to talk about albums that we didn't like, maybe 3 times the entire year.
We only gave 2 where we both did the thumbs down on the album.
Yeah, and even then it wasn't like they were awful or anything. All of the standout stuff that we got to talk about that is in that video, oh man, I'm going to remember this year very fondly when it comes to music of all stripes, shapes, and sizes. So delete your Spotify accounts because fuck Spotify and fuck Daniel Ek.
I'm working on it. That's one of my New Year's resolutions is get the hell off Spotify.
I have my Google Drive account has my entire library on there. So if you need somebody to get your music from, I got you, homie.
You and I are 1 and 2.
So toward the end of 2024, the death of David Lynch threw me into a state of great disarray and melancholy.
Yeah.
The likes of which I was not prepared for. Like I had
That
friends
really set the tone for the year, honestly.
I had friends texting me the day that David Lynch died asking me if I was okay. That's how much my people know me, and I needed those people to reach out to me when that happened.
We were all distraught. Like every single person who's ever been on this channel, all in our group chats, we were in collective mourning.
There's still one David Lynch feature film that I haven't watched yet, which is Wild at Heart, and I'll get to that one of these days, but I'm probably gonna be a little bit reluctant about the last time I'll ever get to watch a David Lynch movie for the first time. I might want to time that particularly well, but one that I did want to do is I knew I wanted to cross off one or the other, right? Because I had Wild at Heart left and I haven't watched it, and I watched the other David Lynch feature that I had never seen, which is Lost Highway. Toward the start of the year.
That's a very Jen movie.
You're goddamn right it is. Because I was so much of the reputation of Lost Highway, at least in the past few years of talking about David Lynch on the internet, has been just like, this is Mulholland Drive prototype, Mulholland Drive Light, Mulholland Drive Light, or at least that's an impression that I had gotten about it from some other people.
Share these addresses, these names. I want to know them.
Bleep this out if you need to. One of them was
that man's film takes are fucking indecipherable.
Back in the day, that's a OG if you leave the name in and anybody recognizes it. Anyway. But Lost Highway, Lynch's Vertigo in many respects.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it is David Lynch's Vertigo in a lot of its structural and a lot of its character dynamics, but this movie is a mood. I felt unnerved while getting deep into the soundscape of this movie. And it honestly reminds me a lot of the experience of listening to Perverts, which I did around the same time, where you're just kind of constantly in this oppressive space where, like, I don't know, there's just something about the way that David Lynch chooses colors for walls on buildings that just constantly unsettle me. Which apparently he filmed some of that movie in the house that he was living in at the time, which, my guy, I know you worked out your problems, but Jesus Christ.
That's wow. You know, I had I won't say like it's not similar just because I had seen it before, but right after he passed at the Kentucky Theater, they were doing a kind of in memoriam screening of Blue Velvet.
Mm.
And I, myself, Rhiannon, Morgan, a ton of friends of mine, we all went. I saw a bunch of people I knew from high school there, which at least tells me that I had good taste in the company that I kept, I guess. But and also Kentucky author Silas House was there. That was interesting. But
Baller. Holy
getting to
shit.
watch that movie in a theater with a bunch of people who obviously also cared for his work was just it was something else. I mean, like I do remember when I woke up and read the news and I was just like how like he in my opinion at least of people that are alive were alive. I don't think anybody pushed the boundaries of cinema on the scale that Lynch did. I don't like that's irreplicable to me. I don't think anybody else did that. I don't think that a single person widened more perspectives on what movies are or could be more than David Lynch did. And I feel like that's not an insane take. I feel like that's
No,
like if you
I
really think
think
about it, it's like him and Kubrick really feel like the guys who you get into so that you can understand that movies aren't just things that you go to, have a good time at and forget about in 2 hours.
Lynch, if you care about movies enough, Lynch will at some point in your life be your favorite filmmaker, even if only
Hmm.
for a day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so losing him felt like a great loss to this generation of artists and of just film enthusiasts in general. And so being able to, at the very top of the year, pay a little bit of remembrance by going somewhere I had never really gone in his filmography felt like a really important thing to do for me. And yeah, I'm still going to hold out on Wild at Heart. It's going to have to be the exact right day that I'll ever
Yeah.
put myself through that. But I do take solace in the fact that Lynch has a bunch of music that I've never listened
Yep.
to, and books I've never read, and short films I've never watched, and documentaries that I've never seen. So I have plenty left
To
to
explore.
learn about and from the man. And I take a little bit of relief in that.
Oh, I completely agree. I think he was maybe the most important artist of my lifetime. That's a crazy fucking thing to say, but truly I can't give that mantle to anybody else because you talk about the giants of cinema and I still think that there is a kind of limit on some of them in terms of broadening the possibilities of just like you have people like Spielberg and it's just like yeah, a titan for sure, like absolutely, but I never watched a Spielberg movie and felt as weird and complicated as I did when I left seeing Inland Empire in theaters a couple of years ago. Like, that's a movie I think about like every other week now. And I love that I got to see something like that in theaters. And like, that's not even anywhere close to my favorite David Lynch movie. And I'm still utterly fascinated by it in so many respects. It teaches you to interact with art in ways that are a lot more honest and a lot less constrictive than oh, I gave this movie a rating or I thought this was good or bad. Like even if you don't like a David Lynch movie, you have to really get into the weeds with why you don't or what it is about you. You have to ask yourself questions if you don't get along with some particular choice being made. And that it's interrogative. The cinema with David Lynch is always a dialogue. Like sometimes you watch something and it kind of feels like this is a movie that's talking at me, not with me. But every David Lynch movie feels like a movie that is talking to you. And that's special.
Yeah. And very few filmmakers will as consistently hit that kind of sensation. Where, yeah, I also watched Inland Empire for the first time just before he had passed away. And that was a movie where I really felt like I was not necessarily trying to figure it out, but trying to communicate with it in some strange sort of way.
Terrifying.
Like, what can I give back to Inland Empire? Is a very strange question,
Precisely.
but it's one that I ended up asking myself of like, what about me makes me feel the way that I do about Inland Empire? And that's a question that art does not always convince me to ask myself.
Absolutely. Rest in peace to the literal GOAT. Literally. The GOAT. And moving along, kind of easy one again. It's this show. It's YouTube channel. Editing. Jen. And also a shout out to Luke, who is also frequently my compatriot on this channel. I have not been on editing duties since the first few months of the Jams and Tea podcast in 2020. Like, Riley took over editing duties fairly quickly just because it wasn't really conducive with my schedule, and Riley was very, very good at what they did, and I am very thankful because without Riley's intervention there, this show would simply not exist and would not have gone on for as long as it did. So, and I have a greater appreciation for the amount of work that is put into even the most random episode of a given podcast. And even though video editing is a very meticulous fucking process, there are few things that I love about making videos or making entertainment or the artistry of filmmaking that, like, I like more than editing. It's, to me, it is kind of like, it's exhausting work, but it's always work that's satisfying. Like, yeah, I've gone through every episode we've done and I have meticulously edited out every time we catch our breath, because we're yappers and we do a little like, and then my brain is just like, all right, gotta delete this. And if I made a super cut of every tiny little edit I made out of this year, I could probably fill a video that's like 30 minutes long. It would be obscene, and it would be
best experimental noise music of 2025 coming to you from the Jen and Jake's Bizarre Fray cutting room floor.
But it's not just about that. It's about learning to, try and make something that flows steadily. And, I'm not saying I'm great at it or anything, but I am saying that I enjoy the process. It's, it's just when you're, I hate saying like, when you're an artist, everybody's an artist these days in some form or fashion. So I don't feel like that it's putting myself on a pedestal, but like when you learn to truly enjoy the process itself, that's when I think you've kind of found your calling, or just the thing that you want to sink your time into. And I do really love it. I love preparing for these episodes and doing research. I love like putting everything together, and I love developing rapport with people and like talking with you and talking with Luke. It's been very satisfying, and I've been able to kind of really, I had no limitations this year. If I wanted to do something, or if you wanted to do something or whatever, we just did it. We didn't ever be like, this, that, or whatever. It's just like, no, if I had an impulse to do something, I did it. I made a stupid video ranking the tier list of a bunch of fucking fictional characters and real people just because I thought it would be funny for a goof. And honestly, that video is really funny. I enjoy how that turned out.
That video is really funny.
And I like making videos like that, and I want to make more like that and kind of expand what we're doing. And we are planning on that, and there are some other things that I have planned in the immediate future that I'm excited to get to, and it's just been nice. I felt really bad about where I was creatively in 2024, and I was like, is this the thing that's going to be like when I started writing my books, where I just kind of felt completely alone? And I was like, well, if you got to do something right, you got to do it yourself. But no, I got back up on the horse, and I rallied around some people, and we've all put some copious hard work into stuff. We're doing stuff like the Nine Inch Nails retrospective with Luke. A new episode of that is coming soon. We're recording with Teeth this weekend, so look for that on the horizon. And I'm feeling really good about this kind of stuff. We're not the biggest YouTube channel in the world, but at the same time, if we weren't doing this for the love of the game, what the fuck would we be doing it for? Like, the idea of making YouTube videos to make money is like sickening to me. If it gets to a point where it happens regularly, cool, awesome, not gonna say no. The economy's kind of in the shitter. But at the same time, I'm not somebody who's gonna cynically be like, oh, what can I make that can appeal to the masses? Like, fuck off. Like, no, I don't want that. Whatever. If we are
This isn't
anything,
about you.
yeah, like if we are about anything, it
If
is
you're
about
watching this,
staying true to
fuck you.
ourselves. Yeah, fuck you if you're listening to this. But no, seriously, I of course appreciate any time eyes are on us in any capacity whatsoever. And we have a limited audience, but I'm very grateful that we get the feedback that we do. And it's nice seeing like a lot of our older stuff from the last 5 years has really picked up traction in the last couple of years. Like a lot of people are coming to older videos that are just kind of like exploding with popularity, and I'm like, really, it makes me think that like, yeah, this has been like worth putting into just because people do seem to enjoy it and we enjoy making it. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to Jen, thank you to you, thank you to Luke, and thank you to everyone who has helped us. Thank you to the First Watch podcast, Zach, Morgan, August, Riley, everybody. Thank you.
We owe you all the world for making
We do.
this worth doing for us.
And
we could
now
just
it's
yap.
time for number
wait, I
one.
I got one more.
One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do.
I debated whether or not I would be so self-indulgent as to do this, but yeah, give me 1 second.
Oh boy. This is how you know it's good.
Can't see it because I'm putting it directly behind me when I sit in the frame. But I finished grad school earlier this year, and part of that was I undertook a thesis project. It was a thesis project that I'd been thinking about before I had even applied to the program in the first place, because I got particularly enamored with the novel House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. And I went to a talk that he did last night here in Louisville, actually,
Whoa!
to promote his new book, Tom's Crossing, which I have a copy of right here on my shelf. And guess what, motherfucker? This thing is 1,200 pages. I'm so excited to read it all. But yes, I got a copy of Tom's Crossing and I got it signed, and I went up and introduced myself and I told him what I had been working on, and I'm sure he's heard this before because I even read for this project a screenplay that he did for a pilot TV adaptation of House of Leaves, where he makes fun of people that write graduate theses on House of Leaves. Just a smidge, just a little
That's
bit.
awesome.
Basically, there's a bit where the idea of House of Leaves is becoming fraudulent due to some event that's happening in the plot. And there's a moment where a bunch of people are like throwing away copies of their manuscripts, and one of them is just like, my thesis is ruined.
Oh no!
But my number one thing this year is the thing that I did myself to get this achievement, which is Everything and Nothing Found in the House of Leaves. My thesis was all about looking at the multimodal expressions that the book uses to get its narrative across, and its chosen form of the novel, and how it engages with other forms of cultural expression to create a unique sense of horror, which we're going to talk about the nuances of this and the book itself in more detail when we actually do the episode. So I'm not going to wax too poetic about this, but I do want to talk about the process of writing this, which was every day I would come home from teaching, or I would come home from my night class. I would go to my kitchen table where my copy of House of Leaves would be waiting for me. And I would just plop my computer on the kitchen table and I would just write. I would read, I would go through my sources, I would do whatever it took. And I worked on this thing almost every single day for a period of about a year to get what is now before me. And there's a PDF of this floating around on U of L's database if you really want to go digging for it. A thing that I did not need to know is exactly how many people downloaded the PDF from that website, which is publicly available information. That's definitely not giving me some early onset career metric anxiety.
Oh,
Thanks.
that sucks. As somebody who has the YouTube Studio app in their phone. Ugh.
But I really do have to take a moment to hand it to myself that this is the thing that I am the most proud of in a long, long time for myself was this project and this thesis. And being able to teach and finish school with my friends all along the way, right? This would not have been as meaningful without the stuff I was having to do in my day to day to get it done. And that includes teaching my students and going to class and being with my friends and still finding quality time in between and even working on this show in between. All of it
That
makes the thesis project worth doing, and it is my favorite thing of this year has
that's
been finishing
awesome.
this.
I hope that I can help do your work and House of Leaves justice. But I mean, like, as somebody who fucking drove to see you graduate, fucking, I'm fucking proud of you, man. It's that's not an easy accomplishment. I mean, I've been with Ree every step of the way of her getting her master's, and that shit's fucking rough, man.
We're gonna
Like, you
turn
gotta.
up. We're gonna turn up when they
Oh,
get finished.
we're already counting down the days just for this semester ending, and so she can be free for a couple of weeks. But like it's a lot, and you got it like you doing this and a job at the same time. I mean, no wonder it feels like sometimes weeks just disappear in the blink of an eye. It is wild. It's wild.
What is your number one?
In true Jake fashion, I'm indecisive, so I'm technically at a tie. The first thing I'll mention is that undoubtedly, without question, the piece of media that I have interacted with and engaged with this year for the first time the most, that has had the biggest impact on me, is very expectedly, I saw the TV Glow. I made a video about this movie with Luke that I would highly recommend just because I think that that is the best testament to that I could muster given the tools at my disposal. It's not often when a scene in a film gets like reaches inside you and pulls a violent sobbing wretch out of you, you know? There is something about that movie that I do kind of feel like re-energized me. Like I feel like that movie was the kick in the ass that I needed to keep writing, to keep doing all of this shit. Because I mean that's a lot of it is that's what it's about. It's about not being stagnant is the theme of that movie in its totality. But that is something that I've already spoken about at length. And if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts and Luke's in-depth thoughts, wonderful contribution from them. Thank you very much, Luke. I would highly recommend go and watching that. For my true number one, well, hold on.
Look at us getting props.
The official thing is not here yet. So, alas, I do not have a perfect representation of it, other than I do have the nice I Saw the TV Glow Blu-ray, courtesy of A24, which the packaging isn't my favorite thing in the world, but it looks cool. The other thing is that I finally broke the streak, I guess, of I had been on a bit of a run of being able to write and finish books in my book series since I was in college. And for a while, it's been a long time since I've been able to truly like commit myself to writing since we moved. And I've had something on the back burner that I know I needed to finish before I progress to the next phase of what I'm doing creatively. And I've just kind of had that as the unconquerable thing that like, oh, I'll just get to that later. I'll get to that later. And this year, with the momentum of everything else, I was finally able to finish it. And this isn't it, but this is the last thing I published. It is the hard copy of If We Make It Through December, the last book that I wrote, which up until most recently was my favorite thing that I had written. And in some respects, hey, gang!
Got my own.
And
Got
in
mine.
some respect, it is still like one of my favorite things I've written just because it's kind of an exercise in just getting to let this story and characters breathe a little bit without the constriction of tethering them to a plot. Like I like the idea of getting to write characters in a more relaxed, casual setting. Like that's kind of why I like writing Those Who Dwell in the Dark, is that it's balancing action with inaction is like those are the two extremes that I like to oscillate between. And I finally finished the first volume of the next arc of the series, which is called Those Who Dwell in the Dark, Bloody Sabbath. So we basically just ended on a repeat of how Jen and Jake's Bizarre Fray ended, where this is what we're recommending to each other. But I do think there is kind of poetry in that in many respects, but in summation, it is the thing I am the most proud of writing to date. I have a lot of personal feelings wrapped up in these books. I mean, every author does with their work, I think. There's nothing special about that. But in particular, this was something that was born out of a pure desire to create, but a lack of resources to do what I wanted to truly do. So when I finally got to commit and do something big and I got to conjure this universe into existence and I just didn't give a fuck about whether or not it would work or whether or not the scale of it was too big or whatever. I was just like, fuck it, man. I'm just going to make the most me thing in existence. I want to make a book series that myself in middle and high school would have thought was the coolest fucking thing ever. That's what I want to write. And so I did. I started, and that has been kind of unfinished for a while just because this new volume, which we will talk about in the coming year, is probably the most emotionally difficult thing I've ever had to write for a lot of different reasons, but also just because there is a lot of personal stuff in it that I am clearly working through with these characters that as I'm seeing them at a transition point, I myself am also at a transition point where I'm officially kind of putting this series on the back burner. And I have started writing my first standalone novel that I have received a little bit of feedback from some people who have read it, and they say that it is the best thing I have written so far, and I am very grateful for those compliments. Thank you, Morgan, Brienne, and Zach, for your feedback. But being able to say that I finished that was difficult just because I think the reason that it took so long was just because the world is very bad right now, and writing things that are emotionally challenging when the world is already very emotionally challenging, it's fucking hard. You don't want to be in the headspace of horrible, dark, awful shit. And I don't want to like paint my series as being like this grim, dark, awful shit. I try to include a lot of hope and optimism in it, even though a lot of bad things happen. But I do a lot of things and take a lot of risks in this new volume that I feel like have worked out for the better, and that I can look back on and be like, I feel like to some extent, if you read all of what I've written with this series so far, you see me get better as a writer in real time. Like, I feel like if you take the first thing I wrote and the last thing I wrote and you compare them, you can tell there's a visible difference. And I'm not saying that I think I'm a great writer or anything, but I'm saying there's substantial improvement. And that's all I care about. Like, literally, like, I just think that I am at a place where I've never been confident, like, ever in myself in any respect. But I can say with some measure of confidence now that I have faith in myself, which I never thought I would. I thought that I would be steering this ship blindfolded for the rest of my life, and I would just be like, hopefully I'll get lucky. But like, no, part of me thinks like, yeah, I think I can do this. I can make something out of this. And I'm happy about it. And it's more of a personal satisfaction thing than anything else, but I'm just thrilled to be able to share it with people and just to have it at all. Like, I get to say that I was a fucking published author before I was 20, and hopefully I can get something published officially through a literary agent before I'm 30. That's the goal. So here's to hoping for the best for the future.
Hell yeah. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, everyone. If we make it through December, indeed. Merle Haggard.
All
Call
right.
back.
Thanks for watching as always. We'll see you back in the new year with all the new stuff we've been talking about. As always, rock over London, rock on Chicago. Gatorade, is it in you? Gay?